Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Rahima Wasti, Marketing Executive at LionProDev, and I'm thrilled to host today's live session on an intriguing and ever-evolving topic that is tech and creativity. And joining me is somebody who needs no introduction, the visionary founder of LionProDev, Mr. Philip Cutting. Philip, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Rahima. Discussing this fantastic topic is a lot of fun for me. So the intersection of technology and creativity and making sure we keep the human in here and keeping it fun and crisp, I think is more important than ever. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Same here, Phil. And this session isn't just about ideas, it's about how technology and creativity fuel innovation as well, business strategies, and personal growth. Let's dive in. So, Phil, let's start with the basics. How do you think and how do you define the relationship between technology and creativity? Are they complementary or conflicting forces?
Okay, so great question. At their core, technology and creativity are complementary forces.
Okay.
Just like, the paintbrush to the finger for cavemen, right? So technology provides the tools and the platform while creativity breathes life into them. Think about how AI tools like ChatGPT or design software like Adobe Creative Studio simplify and amplify our ability to execute creative ideas. And the conflict only arises when we overly rely on technology, either by copy and pasting without thinking, or just losing the human touch that makes creativity a thing.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree to that. And I've started first on how creative campaigns and marketing leverage tech tools like AI for personalized messaging. But do you think there is a risk of creativity being overshadowed by tech?
So absolutely, and that's a real concern.
Mhm.
On almost every interview I've done recently with founders, where we're talking about, or even just discussions where we're friends talking between each other, how do we make that balance, right? And that's key because
Yeah.
we want to use technology, and it should be able to enhance or multiply our creativity, but we nobody believes that we're going to be able to replace creativity with it. And the most impactful ideas are still rooted in human emotion, intuition, storytelling, iterating over concepts using our intuition. And I don't think that tech is really ever going to replace that, even though I think tech will do a lot for us. I think it's not going to replace that human process.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that that's fine. Let's make it practical. Can you share examples of how LionProDev has used technology to drive creative solution for clients?
Of course. One example is how we integrated AI data analytics into a client's marketing strategy. And by understanding customer behavior through predictive models, and
Mhm.
also, I guess we could even say by helping gather data and research with AI tools, we were able to create highly targeted campaigns that were both creative and data driven. So, another example is our use of virtual collaboration tools like Miro, Frame.io, Figma, uh, Teams, Slack, all to streamline brainstorming sessions across different teams and with the clients directly. So these tools don't just make us more efficient, but they also help spark to create new ideas and to spark creativity. And it's just like having, I don't know, like like a third hand.
Yeah, that's great. That's pretty inspiring, I believe. On a personal note, I've seen how our social media strategies blend creativity with tools like Canva or analytics platforms. So it's amazing how tech amplifies impact.
Yeah,
So it
exactly.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Canva has built-in AI now where you can give it a little prompt and it can sit there and help you create art, right? Um, and even today with our marketing team, we were sitting down looking at hooks and using ChatGPT to create a basic image. And then we were using Midjourney to take that concept and to enhance it and giving it prompts and to iterate over it so much faster than we could have done it with traditional methods. And it's just really transforming the approach that we can, the number of approaches that we can take to unlock better solutions.
That's great. Now, let's talk challenges. What obstacles do businesses face when trying to merge tech and creativity?
Oh, and there's a lot of them, right? So a major obstacle is resistance to change.
Mhm.
Many teams are hesitant to adopt new technologies, fearing that
Okay.
they'll replace their roles, and they may,
Yes.
right? So that's a fair concern, right? But another challenge is the skill gap, and having great tools means nothing if the team doesn't know how to use them effectively, which feeds that fear, because you can do two things. One is you can hide from the trend in the technology and just get replaced, right? Just like, the guy with the sheath did when somebody created a better way to harvest wheat, right? So
Exactly.
you can put your head in the sand, or you can
Mhm.
learn to use these tools and
Exactly.
either produce more quicker, create better, you can get better results quicker, or just
Mhm.
in the same amount of time get way better results and shorten the time frame to success.
Yeah,
So
basically, yeah, that is like work harder, work smarter, not harder.
yeah,
That
exactly,
is
exactly. We all love the poor guy that works really hard cleaning the floor, but
exactly.
we really just appreciate having a clean floor and not stepping around somebody who's mopping it.
Absolutely. That you're right about. And I think one big hurdle ensuring teams by staying adaptable. In marketing, for example, trends change rapidly. And how do you suggest businesses keep their creative teams tech savvy?
Mm. Yeah, I think okay, so there's like two steps or three steps for me.
Mhm.
The best way is through just continuous learning, encouraging your team to take online courses, attend workshops, and experiment with new AI tools. At Lion, we have innovation days mixed in, not with just days, but we even have it like innovation hours, right? Where we just like on the spot say, okay, hey, we
Exactly.
have this, let's see what we can do, right? Let's just do some innovation right here. But it's one thing just to have those spontaneous things that are built into the culture, but also to plan it. When you plan things into the calendar, then this means it's important, not just, wow, I realized that it's 3 times this week Phil made us go through these exercises and we're
Yeah.
innovating, but it's also planned in. So we realize that it's important, because like a good leader, he'll train and he'll lead and he'll provide culture, but it's not always obvious to everybody when he makes it smooth. But by planning things in, it makes it obvious that this is a value that's appreciated because it's paid for, right? It's budgeted in. So people realize that absolutely intuitively. Um, Now there's that part, that working those education into it. The other part is that culture that you want to have that says it's okay to experiment, it's fun to learn, and it's okay to make mistakes and to be wrong and to experiment, as
Mhm.
long as you can do it in a way that's healthy for the people involved and isn't going to give a lower quality of product. And
Exactly.
yeah, and just know that anytime you're using a new technology, there's almost always that little J curve where you kind of start in the middle, it dips down a little bit, and then the results come after a little bit of time. You very rarely see something and right away launch into amazing results.
That's great. And let's look forward to it. What future trends do you see shaping the relationship between technology and creativity?
Oh, there's so many exciting trends. Um, Generative AI is a big one, and it's revolutionizing how we create content, from text to visualizations, to hooks to SEO. Virtual reality and augmented reality are reshaping how we are engaging audiences, especially in industries like entertainment and education. and it's 2025. It's going to ramp up. Look at what Facebook is doing, right? They made this amazing, in my opinion, amazing augmented reality hardware that they're not even
Mhm.
going to sell. They're just considering it as the first stage prototype to use test cases on, and they're going to then create a whole nother series of product based off of that. So it's just amazing. Blockchain, right? I think blockchain
Exactly.
is really going to be used in ways that I really adore to help enhance the flow and delivery of goods and services, and to be able to track and reconcile lost goods, or to track value, right? And we're going to see, I think we're going to start seeing more engaging ways to use blockchain, not just current cryptocurrencies, right? Which I think is a great thing. And hopefully we go into a world where, you know, it's okay to have more privacy, right? I'm a big fan of having your privacy. I think blockchain is a way to provide that. But of course, we want to do
Yeah.
that legally and ethically, right? So there's going to be a lot of challenges. There's going to be a lot of economic gains that we're going into. And just like NTFs for artists, I think we're going to see a combination of technology that's going to be really exciting. And I also like to see if people can start building in these technologies with augmented reality and image recognition and pattern recognition into their physical products. For example, like Coach bags, right?
Yeah,
Every
exactly.
Coach bag has a high value and it tends to
Mhm.
rise. I think if Coach would somehow build into their product discrete patterns that you can't recognize visually, but it
Mhm.
creates that NTF tracking that's as unique to that product, and technology can find that pattern in there that you wouldn't recognize with your eyes. This is an advanced way of blockchain and NTFs that I think is going to start providing value, especially as augmented reality comes in, because these systems can recognize that. I just can't wait to see how it's
Exactly.
pulled together. I think 2025 is going to nail it.
Great. So one fascinating trend is the rise of interactive content. Think augmented reality ads or AI generated art. It's exciting, but also overwhelming. So how do you suggest we prepare for such rapid shifts?
You know, there's two techniques, right? I like to use them both. One
Mhm.
is every once in a while you sit down, you get a cigar and a bourbon, and you just relax and you reflect, maybe read a newspaper or a book, right? Let your mind kind of distract itself. But of
Yeah.
course, that technique isn't for everybody, right? Especially for my kids who are not old enough yet. So, another thing is preparation comes down to
Mhm.
the ability and willingness to experiment, and
Mhm.
this is a mindset of resilience. So build a
Okay.
multidisciplinary teams. This is for organizations, right? For build those teams that include both tech experts and creative minds, and encourage cross training so that people can understand both worlds. And don't be afraid to fail, because innovation often comes with trial and error. And we call this, at Lion, we call this learning. So
Mhm.
I think that if we don't call trial and error failure, but if we call that learning, and even if we can call that fun, that's when you're really going to create a healthy ecosystem inside your company. And if you can do that same thing
Exactly.
personally, it's harder to do it individually because technology is coming so fast. It can be very overwhelming. But if you can build resistance, this internal resistance to fear, and enhance your kind of creativity and problem solving, you'll be able to get through this super well. And then the best thing to do, be part of a community.
Bravo. Yeah. That is one thing. Great points. And I'd add collaboration between creative and definitely tech teams is becoming more crucial than ever. You've seen this yourself. It's about breaking the silos and fostering innovation together. So let's take some questions from our audience. They're very excited to ask you some questions. So
Oh,
the
nice.
first one is, Yeah, so the first one is asking, what is the role of blockchain in empowering creators?
Hmm. So where creators realize value when they have a unique way to track their goods, and
Mhm.
blockchain provides that way to track possession of who should be owning the resource that you created, to track usage, right? All these things blockchain is great at and can help you realize your investment, your work investment. So if a creator has the mindset of, as an investor, that he's creating things of value, and his clients can recognize that they pay based on value rather than paying on work, then he can continue to benefit from good work. Now, the risk here is that the creator doesn't produce real value, right? But
Mhm.
he just wants to get paid for long term for work that's not producing, but also get paid a lot up front for inferior work. So I wouldn't worry about blockchain early on, right?
Mhm.
I'd focus on creating really good skills and creating systems that provide value. And as you learn to create great value, then you can start looking into blockchain or NTFs or ways to prove that value and to help track it. So I think you, as an artist, as you get better and better, you realize that value chain and how to bring value, and it all comes together.
Great answer to that, Phil. Phil, we're taking another question. So, how has social media transformed creative marketing?
Mm. So social media is really driving AI. I think that we realized that AI was really a thing when we look at TikTok and how it
Mhm.
was a little bit better than kind of standard machine learning, right?
Yeah.
So while AI is just really a bunch of arrays with a bunch of data and the decision trees that goes into it, but it's starting to feel like it's different than just machine learning. So um, media platforms are driving that ability to have data and analytics, but also it's driving content, and content is king. So if you produce content that is
Yeah.
giving results, then all these
Mhm.
all these systems are pushing that. And you can use that push, that recognition of what people are consuming and enjoying, to help you create better content and to help focus on that content that's really working. So it's kind of like a funny little marriage, that by putting your content on social media at the very beginning as soon as possible to help start test ideas, you can see what's working and what's not, and not waste your time.
Very understandable example you gave. It
Super
was
good
great.
question.
Yeah, it was. So the next question that we are taking is, how do you ensure ethical use of technology in creative fields?
Oh yeah, I think tasers are the way to go. Any creative that is bad should get tasered. Like, okay, you start with like a little puppy taser, and then you go all the way up to like cow taser.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
um,
think we can do that.
no, we cannot do that. Our poor creatives won't be able to be creative anymore. um, so it does come down to, I think, reward and punishment, right?
Mhm.
So the good use of the healthy use of AI and respecting privacy and being creative is going to be rewarded through both success and recognition. But the on the other side, it's you can still be successful by doing bad things as a creator, and creators wield a lot of power nowadays because they can influence, they can really damage people, they can hurt lives, right? But they can, on the other side, they can do amazing and beautiful things. So I think it comes down to society to reward and to punish that, the good and the bad, and to try to create that environment where it's recognized that we appreciate our artists and our creators, but also it's not reasonable to do certain things, and you still have to behave in certain norms. Um, And I think, boycotts, you see boycotts sometimes where people like, hey, look, I'm going to boycott Netflix. I certainly boycotted Netflix for about 2 years after they did that series with the suicides. I didn't think that they should be glorifying that. So I just got rid of my subscriptions. And of course we can say that Netflix is, a great and exciting company that I adore in a lot of ways, but I thought that was completely inappropriate. So this was my way of saying, no, that's not acceptable. That was like my baby taser, right? My puppy taser. There's much more aggressive acts that you could do, like going to Congress and saying, hey, we're going to make TikTok illegal for children under a certain age or certain things like that, right? I'm not saying you should, but we should look at how we are supporting or damaging people, right? I think this is kind of a role that government needs to play in a certain point and not just allow rampant capitalism, though I'm a huge fan of capitalism, don't get me wrong, but there has to be some constraints, and sometimes it comes with requiring and demanding transparency and doing research to make sure that we're making the hard decisions, that we don't let our kids sit down and watch TV and play video games while we're having a family dinner. So that's a long answer to a simple question, but it's a good question too.
Great answer to that, Ria. And another question that we are gonna take is, how do you see 3D printing shaping creative industries?
Oh, I love it. I so much love it. With now you can sell your idea without delivery anymore. Can you imagine? Now we have 3D printing in liquid. It's insane. We can print metal. We can print anything. I mean, gosh, I've
Isn't
seen
it so cool? We used to
it's insane, right?
boggle our heads on that. Yeah.
Amazing. I am so excited, right? It's just it's great. The ability for creators to sell something online, and it could be in a matter of minutes, hours, however long it takes to print the darn thing off, depending on the complexity and size, I guess, to have that in your house right away, even without delivery, right? Can you imagine if we could print circuit boards and technology and farm equipment from our garage without ever having to worry about drones delivering things, right? Why do we need trucks anymore? We should just have cute little scooter cars for like individuals and big scooter cars for families, and they should just go around autonomously. We can thank Elon for his amazing tech and great vehicles, and we can just have fun. Why do we even work anymore? Goodness, just create things, be creative. Like the new work is definitely, I think, going to be creativity, and I really want to encourage everybody to struggle with it, to find their inner creative child, or whatever you want to call it, but to draw on that creativity that a lot of you guys, myself included, that if you put down your creativity or you struggle for creativity, you're not an uncreative person. You've just not exercised it enough because of it wasn't supported. So be brave. And I'm talking to you, every person that says to themselves, I'm not creative, and I'm not creative as the other guy, or I'm not creative enough. You are. You really are. Don't be afraid to get out there and experiment with it. You got to water that.
Great.
So yeah, printers, love it. 3D printers, amazing.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that answer. And what's a project where technology and creativity perfectly complement each other for you?
I mean,
perfectly complemented each other for you. That was in past. What was it in your experience?
yeah. So I think every project does, right? Look at bridges, right? Look at like some of these beautiful bridges we've made, or the architecture, right? You can see a building that somebody built and it's just like, okay, they made a block. But you can see when they started putting creativity in there and little things that's added to it. When I'm working on an app, right, and somebody gives me the client gives me the creative freedom to really make it special, and of course I have to have some bounds in there, right? But when you give me that freedom, I can go in there and I can take just a regular idea and to make it special, right? I can make it that dream thing that you were always thinking it was going to be, and you couldn't quite verbalize it. And this is why you want to find those teams that have that passion around you, and you can encourage them to be creative and set them free. Find great teams around you and set them free to experiment, to learn, and to grow around you and support you. So as far as direct examples, I mean, look at stadium. Look at some of these football stadiums, right?
Exactly.
Look at the Voice of Europe, right? Come on, this is a lot of work. This is technical ability between getting the communication out there, syncing people's votes, putting the platform and the technology for recording and for training and all that stuff they do around the show, and tied right together with this direct creative talent of singing and the art that goes into it. It's on so many different levels creative. I mean, look at the production, right?
That certainly it is. And it makes it aesthetical pleasing as well. So are there any ethical boundaries when using technology in creative work?
There's ethical boundaries in what we present to the world and what we allow to happen. But I don't think technology is ethical or unethical. Now, there's a lot of people that I know, there's a few things that come to mind a lot right now, like around reproductive rights or, fertilization and stuff like that, or genetic modification. But the technology itself isn't bad, I think. But to be able to research this and to study and to see, because even with gene modification, right, you can say, well, that's unethical technology, right? But gene modification happens in nature, right? Now, the science to understand it better and to help cope with it is a beautiful thing, is a gift, right? That we have laws in science that's actual truth, right? Things that if we can do gene modification, it's because it's a law, it's a physics around it. There's rules. It's a real thing. It's a reality. So that's, I don't think even that is bad, but it's the people that abuse it and really do things that they know they shouldn't, or they just say, I will because I am my own kind of God. Like, it's anytime you go from saying, yeah, evolution is the thing that happened over millions of years, but now I feel like a god, that should be a little warning sign to you that you took creativity too far.
Well answered. So what industries have seen the most dramatic shifts in creativity due to technological advancements?
I think it's really so far been financial industries that have seen the most. I think coming into 25, it's going to change, and it's going to be the medical industry that is going to have amazing growth. We can all simply imagine how augmented reality is going to make it so that it's very introductory level surgeons or non-surgeons could do life-saving procedures remotely. So I think in my heart that's where things are going to go. Where else, we're going to have, it's going to change the way we think about programming and solving problems. It's going to change the way we look at entertainment and how we what we feel about our day and how we feel like we connect with people. I think part of it is we're going to feel like really separated from people as we have more technology things become overwhelming. So it's going to become more important that you reach out and you focus on creating those networks and communities that you can collaborate with and to do things. And I think work is going to become a social service, a social need, right? Because like in families, we all feel like we do things for the family to take care of each other, and it gives value, right? And I think the work is going to become a similar thing, because when you don't have to work anymore because so many jobs are automated, or there's robotics that's taking care of so many things, or there's just so much productivity in the world that you really don't have to work anymore. There's two options, right? Either there's too many people and we have to get rid of them, or we figure out how to work together and to enjoy each other more.
Great. What is the role of collaboration in tech-driven creativity?
So collaboration is what allows that synergy of multiple
Mhm.
talents coming together, right? If two
Okay.
people are sitting in the room and they're not collaborating, then no, you don't have any synergistic effects of those two talents. But as soon as they start collaborating and challenging each other, that's when you have synergy. So it's going to be multiplied with technology now, that our synergy is not just what 2 or 5 people could do, but maybe what 1,000 or 10,000 people could do with 2 people.
Well, that was great. So there's another question that is, how can virtual reality redefine storytelling?
Mm. I don't think it's going to redefine storytelling,
Mhm.
but I think that virtual reality is going to change the medium that we appreciate it in, and it's going to change how we go through that story. It's going to become personalized where it could never be before, but we're still going to have the same storytelling methodology and rules set up, because that's what the story is, right? And that's the entertainment of your particular product. So with with virtual reality, or augmented reality, either way, and
Mhm.
AI, we're going to be able to create more decision paths and to see kind of what role you want to play in that story, right? Can you imagine like the Batman's movie with the Batman and Joker? And if you wanted
Yeah.
it to be, if you were more inclined to the dark character, right? Maybe you got to see more of his story and how that was developing inside that unit of entertainment. Or if if you're more in who name it, right? You start identifying with a certain character, or even with the crowd, right? And being of a bystander and seeing how it felt for all this being going on around you, right? It can shift the perspective, but you're still going to have the overlying story mechanisms. I'm going to be doing a like 6 months of storytelling with Alan
Okay.
Hill on the podcast. We're going to go
Nice.
through
That's cool.
10 books on the topic. So I'm really excited about that. Great question. Thank you.
That was great. So, how do you balance creative intuition with data-driven insights?
Mm. So the data driven insights helps you verify your insights, right? So it's one thing to have an insight, but it's another thing to verify it, to be able to test it quickly or even
Mhm.
remotely, and to even then set up the thesis on what you are testing, create the algorithm to test it, and then validates that those results that you're getting, the data that you're getting, is actually valid in the first place. Hardest thing to do is to do a study, get data that looks right, but it was misleading, and make a bunch of decisions that you should not have made. So I think with the combination thereof, and AI, of course, now because this is in the mix, that we're going to be able to take data driven intuitions, test that, and this is what's the human factor. That intuition is a human factor, right? You can get all kinds of data from GPT or the Google, the new Google algorithms, but where you're going to go from there, how you solve that problem, that's where the ingenuity and intuition takes place.
Well, it was well answered. So, how can virtual, right, it was answered already. What industries have seen the most dramatic shifts in creativity due to, you've answered that too. And how do you balance creative intuition with data-driven insights? That has been answered as well. Now we've
Right.
got another question for you. That is from our audience. What role does storytelling play in merging tech and creativity?
Mm. So I like this question because we're coming into a time where
Mhm.
it's we don't just look at products for features, right? We look
Okay.
at a product and how it affects us personally, right? How does it affect you, is the question that you need to ask when you're creating that story. When you're the person listening to that, you're like, does it affect me? Is it meaningful to me? What do I connect with this story? And does the story say anything to me? And that goes from anything from a can of tuna to your 3D printer being able to print off, your toys for your kids, or a movie that you're going to watch where you're the hero or you're there along with the hero, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, so storytelling I think is going to be the foundation of everything we do going forward when we're designing products, delivering goods, and enjoying our lives. And I think we look at storytelling not just as a creative story, right? Not just as like cops and robbers or James Bond movie, right? But
Exactly.
storytelling is more about what was the challenge, what's the injustice, how's the life or the story, what's going to be better after this, or how did it end tragically, right? Not every story has a happy ending,
Absolutely.
but it all has that progression, that storyline that brings value. A funeral is looking back at the story of somebody's life and hopefully reminiscing that and ending that chapter for ourselves so that we can move on and to reminisce, but say, hey, that was a good story. And we don't use those terms, but that's what it is. It's the conclusion of that one story and opening up a new chapter in our story.
Well, it was great. So, do you think, Phil, that AI will eventually replace creative professionals?
To some degree, yes, and it already has,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
If you're just doing formulaic creativity, which I wouldn't really call creativity, but if you're
Mhm.
just producing formulaic stories or blogs or something that's not really creative, then you're already replaced at this point. But if you're doing true creativity, where you're doing the problem solving and you're directing the journey and you're building that story and you're going through and evolving that creativity, that can't be replaced, right? You can't, no AI system I think will ever be able to really go through and create all this, because AI is really just a combination of a lot of stuff, right? Of maybe just components put together, and it may be done well or not well, and it kind of can critique itself and say, okay, it's good enough, right? But we're going to see a lot of people that are just trying to do the old paradigm where they're just on a factory floor, they're not putting their soul or intellect into it, and they're not getting good results because people are going to recognize that and be overwhelmed by mundane stories, mundane copy, or mundane creativity, right? It's people are going to say this is AI, or it's not interesting because there's such a glut of that. You have to stand out.
Great. So, how can small businesses afford the tech tools required for creative projects?
So that's a good question. The
Mhm.
There's two parts. First of all, making sure that you're serving a real need, right? So if you're serving a real need that's producing meaningful value, you'll have no problem, right? Because you just gotta make sure you're delivering a good product. Then, if you're not finding that right fit, then I recommend that you use some AI and friends, but start with AI to challenge yourself. One of my friends comes to me, he says, "Hey Phil, would you look at my resume and basically would even hire me?" I'm like, "Look, I only hire very skilled seasoned guys," and he's like, "Okay, well, just look at my resume for me." And
Mhm.
he goes, so I looked at it, I'm like, and I was to myself, I hope he's not listening. It was disgusting. It was boring. If it was in a
Okay.
stack of resumes, it was 2 pages. It was formatted with no white space, and it didn't say anything about him that was interesting. And I responded, I said, "Hey, look, I know you, and you're more interested and you provide more value than this. To
Okay.
go on AI and put it in there and go back and forth, do some role playing and see how you can improve it before you
Mhm.
ask me what can be done." And
That's a
I
great
did this
idea.
because I would have just really hurt his feelings if I come out and said It was boring. You didn't express yourself. You didn't listen to the other advice I told you. You didn't show any kind of value in there. And what you presented in there was so mundane and boring that I wouldn't have even finished reading it if I didn't love you.
All right. Okay.
Right. So
That came out like that.
yeah, it's a little rough, right? But he kind of knows me. So he was probably expecting that answer, but I tried to kind of give him in a direction that's going to be more beneficial to him, to get him to the point where he can think through that a little bit first. So go to AI first, right? Before you consult with anybody, asking it to score it and critique it, and say you can even point it to say like, hey, I want to know based off Phil's podcast. This is the podcast, or here's some transcripts of what Phil says. Look at his voice, look at his website, LionProDev, and look at some of the projects and see based off of his level as CTO for a tech company for 15, 20 years, right? What would he say in here, right? And role play that and get some of those hard questions before you come to me, because I'm frankly going to look at you real quickly and say if I'm wasting my time, or if I'm really going to hurt your feelings, or if you're going to value the feedback that I gave you in the first place. Because there's too big of a gap, right? If you're coming to me with no preparation, but what you thought was a lot of hard work, but by preparation I mean, oh, and this is a good thing for not just resumes and not just people coming to this, which is why I get into it. But if you're creating a product, do the same thing. Role play it on ChatGPT and see if you can get past those questions before you go talk to people. So you're more prepared, and it helps you multiply your time with people and give you confidence. You'd be surprised. Just ask it to critique it as this person would, and see what happens. I do it a lot. I'm surprised often myself.
Well, that was a great idea. I'll definitely get myself critiqued by AI now. I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah, no, you've seen me create some of your, critique some of your stuff, and I'm like, hey, look, here it is. I don't do it too much, but it's when you do it the first time, it can be like, oh, that sucks. Yuck. The AI doesn't know shit. I'm awesome. I'm the prettiest. My mom's the best. Right. But after you do it a couple times, you realize that it's just fun. It's just learning. It takes the sting off, which is cool, because it's better to be able to respond with a little bit of a sting to AI who has no emotions than somebody who actually cares about you and is giving you a little stinging information, because it's so hard for somebody to give critique. People don't like doing it. People don't like saying, wow, I didn't like giving it to this guy that's like, wow, your stuff is so crappy, I don't even want to talk to you. Right. It's that's a hard thing to say to somebody, right? And if you can get the person in that place to say that, but say it openly with a warm heart, right, then you can learn from that, right? But for a lot of people who haven't gone through that exercise of being open to it, really hard to hear sometimes.
All right. Yeah, that certainly is. That does feel bad at times. So, Phil, as we wrap up, what's your key takeaway for businesses and individuals looking to harness tech and creativity effectively?
I think my key takeaway would be keep it simple. Keep it simple. View technology as something that enables you and not as a replacement for creativity. It's not, technology isn't going to replace the you. It's not going to replace your soul, and it's not going to replace that warmth that you provide to people around you, right? If we try to, if there's a restaurant, and maybe McDonald's can do this, right? But a nice 5-star restaurant will never be able to do this. Replace its staff and waiters with machines, right? If you have that perfect waiter machine that comes out like the Star Wars movie and in 3 million languages, can say, here's how you have a fish, sir, but it feels cold, right? Then you see, you can imagine the value of the human, right? So realize that you're precious and focus on that human connection, that thing that makes you special, more than the mechanical value that we're given in the industrial age, which we're quickly moving out of, right? If we haven't already been out of it for a couple decades, and adapt with a purpose, right? Have that vision, stay focused, be curious. I don't think we'll ever be able to program curiosity into technology, right? We'll be able to
Never.
say, iterate on it until you hit this goal, right? Iterate on this blog until it's a 10 out of a 10 with me, right? That's different, right? But you can never say, okay, wow, that was interesting. How about we chase down this line of logic and have fun with it? Yeah, just the future really belongs to you who can balance logic with imagination and probably maybe even working some of that story that I'm really kind of running along a second thread today.
So that was beautifully said, Phil. That I just add that collaboration and continuous learning are essential, and don't be afraid to experiment because that's where innovation happens. Thank you so much, Phil, and a big thank you to our audience for joining us today. Remember, creativity and technology aren't just tools, they are opportunities to shape a better future. Until next time, stay curious and keep innovating. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, dear. Thank you, everybody.
Take care of yourself.